So may I speak in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. It is indeed Good Shepherd Sunday today, and also Vocation Sunday in the Church of England. You might be surprised that a UK television programme about sheepdog trials would be so popular around the world. And I could probably guess and be right that at least everybody has seen at least one episode of One Man and His Dog. Is that right? Online? Want to wave? They're waving, yes. From 1976 until 2012, it was on BBC Two every Sunday early evening time. And then it was switched to BBC One because it was so popular and had its own special edition on Countryfile, but not as often. And watching that programme drew you in, almost magically entranced by this shepherd that whistled and called, and the dog that responded, that was so cunning and crafty. And not least the actual places where it was filmed. They were almost like paradise in a sense, in the hills, the dales, the Cotswolds, Cumbria, and places like that. You know, well, I've said the dales. Yeah. This last week or so, I've been watching a shepherd called James Rebanks, and he has written a book called The Shepherd's Life and the Pastoral, a book called The Pastoral Isle. And he's a lovely shepherd chap who keeps a tradition of 500 years of being shepherds in their family. And he's been recording some of the Herdwick sheep that had been born on his farm. And one of the most enthralling little video clips this week was his little boy who was dressed up in his school uniform, little red blazers like they have, but he had plastic pants on because his dad had phoned him up and his pet lamb was ready to give birth. And so he comes darting over the fields because the sheep are in the low pasture, and he says, It's your you sort of thing that was your pet lamb is now ready to give birth, and he's got his school uniform all apart from his. He says, "Do you want to help?" And the little boy, who was 8 years old, just got stuck in straight away, pulled the legs out of the sheep, and then there was another one come, and he got it all over his school uniform, all the mess and the gunk. He says, "Oh, it's okay, Dad. I'll go and get changed before I go to school." And my mind just raced because how many of our school children have had such an experience like that? Can you imagine sitting in the class saying, "Well, what did you do this morning?" "Oh, well, I had my Cocoa Pops, a little bit of juice, or I didn't really have much breakfast." And there's this little 8-year-old lad who's been brought up in the traditions of, my sermon's gone on the floor. No puns, please. I was just really enthralled. I mean, that these young people it's passed on from father to son, from age to age. The secret ways, the little tricks and tales of what to do, how to care for sheep. So mesmerized was I this week. And we seem to have lost that in a way, don't we? We seem to have become more modernized, which may be good and may be bad, but we've lost that handing on of things from one generation to another. Oh, it's not as good as it used to be. So I think I long for things like that, the passing on of trades from one to another. Anyway, back to the shepherd and his sheep and the dogs. The aim of the dog was to herd the flock of sheep into a small pen in as short a time as possible. And as I said, with calls and whistles, the shepherd and the dog worked in harness, in unison. And the ultimate goal was to get them into the pen. And that was always the funny bit, wasn't it? They'd get right to the door. And most of them would just go in, and the shepherd is just about to slam the gate. And what happens? One of the sheep goes waltzing Matilda around and away and escapes. And of course, you lose points. So you have to start again. But maybe the sheep weren't that silly after all. They were just trying to avoid being fenced in. Who could blame them for running away? Who wants to be chased by something that perhaps to them looks a little bit like a wolf? I don't know. Exploiting the hunting instincts of a dog and the instinct of the sheep to flee predators, it is a little bit like herding cats, or is it sheep? But fear is a most powerful thing, isn't it? Can you think of a time when you've been afraid, when you've almost been fenced in, pushed in a direction that you don't want to go? Can you trust the process? It's a question to think and to ponder on, isn't it? We've probably all been in that position, whether it be at work or in family situations or just in life in general. The gospel reading that we've heard today and the shepherding in Jesus' time was very different to that we see on this most popular One Man and His Dog TV series. The shepherds didn't drive their sheep. They walked with them. If the path was narrow ahead, they walked in front. If it was broad, they walked behind. They were interchangeable in their ways with people and their sheep. If a wolf appeared, they would see it off. There are many examples of David telling that he'd killed the wolf and the bear and the lion. The sheep, as you all know, or have been told, knew their shepherd and trusted him. He wasn't trying to take away their freedom. On the contrary, the shepherd was expanding their horizons. He was leading them to fresh pasture. In the Judean hillsides, the heat of the day, often after the browns the grass and the shepherds had to move them on into new pasture. As Psalm 23 reminds us, he knew their names. It's so easy to say that and then just move on. But today, we need to hear that God knows our names. We're not just a mass of people. He called their names and they came. It's like I could call these names Clem, Franklin, Robin and Margot, chosen the church wardens because at least they pretend to do what I ask them or hear when I speak to them. And then there's the stragglers, the Monsieur Alcotts and people like that waltz in and waltz out, but still add to the flock. But the thing is they know the voice and they trust the shepherd. And that is a very, very powerful thing. And I just want you to think, perhaps this week, about that God is known to you as individuals. Indeed, he knows every hair upon your head. As Psalm 139 says, he knows the words on our mouth before they are even formed. He saw us in our mother's womb. Oh, what it is wonderfully like to be fully known, to be fully listened to, and not to be hurried out of the way or just given a little bit of time. We can trust him. because Jesus gave his life for us. No one made him do it. He did it because of his love. And that's the difference between a job and a vocation. Being called, doing it because you care, not looking for a reward or a badge, just wanting to give of yourself. That is what being a Christian and living in a Christian community is all about, isn't it? We prefer and we love one another. We do it because we want to bless one another, that we care for one another. Self-gift is never a waste. Dedicated people in all walks of life find fulfillment in giving themselves. Doing a good job matters. People matter. I know it's mostly over the years, things like this, vocation and calling, has been given over to priestly vocations, but you've only to speak to dedicated health professionals, doctors and nurses, or artists, indeed craftsmen like shepherds, carpenters. You get into their story and you hear their life. And it's more than just a paid job. It's more than just the 9 to 5, isn't it? Musicians who dedicate their life to the craft of music. I want you this week to think about your life and your vocation. Look back for a moment. See where you've enjoyed life, where life has been worth living, where life was full of love. Think about those things. And indeed, then think about the times of hurt. Think about the times of being trapped and just getting on and doing the job. And give thanks to God that he's brought you safe thus far, that the bumps in the road have been smoothed out. And if we are to create this wonderful community that we all want to, all think about, all have this idea of being a Christian community, that should be a place where people can come and find what they're good at, what they can excel at, what God has called them to be. That is when we're doing a good job for the Lord, I think. We don't ever want to force or manipulate people into doing things for us or getting things from them. We need to follow in the footsteps of the shepherd and to be like him. Our likeness will then be the likeness of Jesus. And it will make us all good doctors, nurses, engineers, parents, grandparents. We don't want to drive people into the church, in a sense, like sheep saying, come on, get in here, let's pack you all in. We want to help people find their vocation, to find God. We want to know people by name, to spend time with them. So if you are thinking about your life thus far, take a little look back this week and then cast your eye forward. Are there things in your life that you need to do? That you've got a bucket list, as it were? You need to go, you need to accomplish. We should also be a place where we can foster and help that. The collect for Vocation Sunday, in addition to the normal collect, is this, and I just want to pray it over us today. Risen Christ, faithful shepherd of your Father's sheep, teach us to hear your voice and to follow your command, that all people may be gathered into one flock to the glory of God the Father Amen. So today we place and entrust our lives to the faithful shepherd of the flock. I've just got a wonderful prayer for us all to repeat back. I'll say the word and then you'll just repeat it, shall you? Lord, you trust me.
Lord, you trust me.
Lord, you free me.
Lord, you free me.
Lord, you love me.
Lord, you love me.
Lord, you fill me.
Lord, you fill me.
Lord, you share your work with me.
Lord, you share your work with me.
Lord, you are my life.
Lord, you are my life.
So in the name of the Father and of the Son this day, may you know the grace and the blessing of God. May you be loved and may you love one another and care for one another as the Father cares for us. Amen.